Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, hello, whatever time it is with you and wherever you are. Thank you for downloading this SmackDown review as part of the WWE podcast. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to have you listening along. I am Amanda, your host of the SmackDown review. And before we get to the review, let's have a really quick look at the matches planned for Saturday night's main event. And of course, as always, we're going to try and make some predictions. So starting off with what I guess is going to be the main event of the show. This is CM Punk, Cody Rhodes versus Gunther and Sami Zayn. This is likely to be the headline match and going to be massive in the setup for SummerSlam. We've got Punk and Cody joining forces against two of their current biggest rivals. This should be excellent. I mean, can we really see these two teams getting along for the whole match? It seems quite unlikely to me. I think this one is really hard to call. I'm going to go for a Punk-Cody win, but not with much confidence. Will we get some extra people popping up? Of course, I'm thinking KO, but let's see. We got Bayley versus Lyra Valkyria, the grudge match. After Lyra, of course, turned on Bayley, this should be a really physical encounter, and I think it's going to be a great match. After it seems Lyra has totally transitioned into a homeless drug addict in her look, I'm going to say a Bayley win, and this one will continue to SummerSlam, I think. We've then got Danhausen versus JD McDonough in a no DQ match. Bit of chaos expected here, and with no DQ anything can happen. I think we are going to continue to see Danhausen booked very strong, and we're going to see a win for him here. We've then got the Women's Tag Team Championship, Paige and Brie Bella, current champions, versus Fallon Henley and Lainey Reed. I think this is going to be a really good match. I am predicting that Paige and Brie will drop the belts here to Fatal Attraction, and I think that's okay. I think the time is probably right, and let's see what Paige can do by herself in the division. I'm expecting we're going to get a Nikki Bella return at some time as well, so let's see how that all plays out. Listen, the card looks pretty good to me, and this is a really good placeholder as we really start to rev up for our two-night SummerSlam next month. Right, let's get to it and review the SmackDown that aired July 17th from New York. And we start off with a recap of last week's events leading to Punk becoming champ and the setup for the match at Saturday night's main event. And we get the show kicking off properly tonight with Gunther, and I'm guessing he is going to be mad as a box of frogs. He certainly looks that way. And after he attacked Nick last week, should he not be at least suspended? But no, here he is. Comms telling us that the consequences are still TBD for Gunther, so that leaves us still with the tag match on Saturday, which is good, I guess. But sometime, surely there's going to have to be some consequences for what he's done. Gunther gets massive boos, and he says, let's address the elephant in the room. He says to this point, his whole career has been... he's been an outstanding pro, but since he joined SmackDown, he's been mistreated. He says maybe Nick's jealous, and if so, he gets it. He is the best, and everyone knows that he should be champion right now. He says that he thinks Nick is the only thing that stopped him from being champion. He says he has made the whole thing personal. He says he's being forced to team with Sami against Cody and Punk, and he says that Sami's beneath him and that it's unacceptable, and he says he's not going to stand for it. We then get Adam Pearce out, who basically tells him to shut up and tells Gunther the only thing he should be saying to Nick Aldis is thank you. Gunther asks him for what, and Pearce tells him for saving his job. Adam tells him off for all the things he's done and tells him that if he was on Raw he would be fired. He tells Gunther it's down to Nick that he's allowed to be here. Adam tells him about the stipulation for the match, which is that if Sami and Gunther win, they're going to be added to the SummerSlam match, making it a fatal four-way. Just let that sink in. This brings out Cody, who seems quite clearly mad, and there's no talking. Cody heads to the ring. They start to brawl. Cody manages to dump Gunther out and grabs the mic. He says, look at you get another stipulation in your favour. Cody tells him that he's not going to make it past Saturday anyway. Cody says he wants Gunther one-on-one tonight, and Pearce makes the match. Well, as an opening segment, that was pretty strong. I have to say, I'm not crazy about the possibility that Gunther and Sami could be added to the SummerSlam match. I don't think either of them deserve that. And I'm a bit bored with the same angle again and again. But personally, I don't think it's going to happen. I see either a DQ finish, maybe even Nick comes out to screw Gunther, or just a Cody Punk win. Either way, I think we're going to get Nick versus Gunther at SummerSlam and Sami back to the mid-card for a while. Not a bad main event for the SmackDown crowd tonight, though. Gunther versus Cody, which I'm sure won't end up being a shenanigan-free match either. So let's see how the show pans out. But all in all, not a bad start. We then go to the moment that, frankly, I have been dreading, and this is an announcement from Pierce. He starts talking about Rhea Ripley, and immediately I'm thinking, this does not sound good. This is going to be some kind of relinquishment. He tells us that Rhea's been struggling with an injury for the last few weeks. He says she's worked tirelessly to return, but due to the nature of the injury, she won't be able to compete at SummerSlam. So, instead of relinquishing the title, they're going to crown an interim champ. And they're going to start a qualifying tournament tonight. And once Rhea returns, she's going to fight the interim champion to see who's ever is best. Tonight, we will have Jade Cargill versus Nia Jax in what I can only assume will be a huge botch-off. Wow. That will be proper car crash TV. We'll also have Tiffy versus JCJ. And this is a good angle. I like it. A ladder match to crown the interim champ. Let's all just collectively manifest that we don't end up with Jade as interim champ. Literally no one wants to see that. No one. But it's a decent solution. I like it. And it means that Rhea doesn't relinquish the title, which seems deeply unfair if she did, because I think she's already had to relinquish once before. I think she had a shoulder injury, an angle at least. So I think this is a good solution, and still allows us to have plenty of women's action as we lead up to SummerSlam. First out in terms of in-ring action, we've got Finn Balor versus Talla Tonga. As I said last week, I like face Finn very much. I do not see how on earth he's going to beat Talla Tonga. He's an absolute monster. But let's see. I think this will be quite an interesting match. As predicted, Finn starts off strong, using his quickness to get some offense in, but he's soon flattened by Talla Tonga, who takes over. We get another fight back from Finn, who withstands the interference on the outside from Tama Tonga and hits the Wicklow drop on Talla, getting a very close count. Talla, though, fights back again and drops Finn. We get Finn then taking out Tama on the outside and manages to deliver the coup de grace not once but twice on Talla Tonga, and Finn takes the win to the surprise of literally everyone. And Finn is on fire right now. I'm so pleased that he's finally getting a good push. Since he arrived on SmackDown, he's doing great, and he is a brilliant talent, and as a face, he's just great. Let's see him in the title picture, please. We go backstage where we've got Pierce, and he's approached by Punk. Punk says he wanted to make sure that he'd heard everything right. Punk says he hates it. Pierce says the decision is made. Punk says that tonight's match between Cody and Gunther is dumb, as all he knows that all Gunther wants to do is to hurt Cody. Punk says he's going to go speak to Cody, and on his way he bumps into Priest, who says he appreciates the shout out from last week, and he says he hopes that Punk still is champ after SummerSlam because he'll be waiting for him. Punk says, hey, maybe him and Cody will go on a tear and come after the tag belts. Well, I don't mind that at all, and that's the reason I hope Punk retains. He opens up the opponents for his title. I'd love to see Punk versus Priest for the title. I'd love to see Finn versus Punk. There are so many opportunities, which is why I really hope that the belt stays with Punk, as the Cody options, to be honest, are drying up. Gunther is meh, and Sami shouldn't even be in the conversation, in my opinion. We then get a bit of a promo train. We get Jade first of all. She says she kicks down the door for opportunity. She says no one is made from the same cloth as her, and to be honest, we thank the baby Jesus for that. She blathers on a bit, the usual shtick, and then we can go to Nia, who says she feels no pressure. She gets ready for her third title reign. She says everyone else should feel the pressure as it's her time. We then get JCJ, who says that Fatal Influence have already shook the table. Tonight they're going to remind everyone who they are when she wins, and the girls win the tag titles at Saturday night's main event. We then finally get Tiffy, who talks about having home field advantage at SummerSlam and says Minnesota will have front row seats to see Tiffy 2 belts crowned. Next up, we've got the JCJ versus Tiffy match, and honestly, this should really be an awesome match. Before we can even start, though, we get the whole of Fatal Influence jumping Tiffy pre the bell, and she is then saved by the tag champs. So we get Brie and Paige coming out to make the save. We finally start the match, and JCJ is left alone with Tiffy, who doesn't seem to be too worse for wear following the shenanigans. As expected, this is a pretty great match. These two are well matched in both size and skill. Tiffy showing some excellent move, hits the prettiest moonsault ever and takes the win. JCJ certainly not embarrassed. She continues to be booked strong, but it's Tiffy who did great. She's the first one through to the ladder match at SummerSlam. We then go to a promo from Baron Corbin, who tells Mello that he was collateral damage last week. He warns the roster to enjoy it while they can because he's Baron Corbin and he's coming for it all. I have to say, I'm excited to see where this Corbin run goes. He has been through so many incarnations, most of which have been pretty ridiculous in his various times spent with WWE. None have landed, despite him being a really good talent. So fingers really genuinely crossed for this one. We go to Jackie, who has Trick with her. Trick says to Corbin that he's a bald-headed bitch and says that his title has got more hair on him than on his head, which is kind of juvenile and weird. Mello comes along and tells him he knows he isn't better than him. Trick says he's done nothing since he's been on SmackDown and tells him to mind his business. So it looks like we might be headed to a triple threat match. Mello, Trick and Corbin, I wouldn't mind that at all. And I'd really like to see Corbin get a decent title run. I feel like he 100% deserves it, and that would be just awesome. We then get a recap of Raw and the Obafemi Brock Hell in a Cell match set up for SummerSlam, and that's been a theme of tonight's show. We've had an awful lot of time spent on recapping stuff that happened on Raw, and we've also had a lot of adverts for normal adverts, telly adverts, but also a lot of stuff for FanFest, Fanatics. We've also had a lot of WWE shop stuff, and we've had a lot of SummerSlam promo as well. So we've really had a lot of non-SmackDown related stuff. Next out, we've got Nia versus Jade in what will no doubt be a botchy McBoxface extravaganza. Nia doesn't even get her entrance televised, and when introduced, yes, you guessed it, crickets and boos. Jade does get her entrance, and again, crickets, so this could be intriguing. This one starts off and Jade manages to overcome Nia very briefly, but we get Charlotte pretty much straight out and she takes out Jade and the B-Card army. Getting a chair, she starts to take out Jade's arm, but the B-Card army drag Jade to safety, and Nia is fuming that Charlotte's caused a DQ finish and has basically gifted the victory to Jade. After the match, we then get Jade, give Charlotte Jaded, and I really hate how they are feeding all these great talents to Jade. Clearly, WWE love her, but they might be the only ones. I am disappointed we didn't get to see this match. As you know, I'm no Nia fan, but honestly, she probably did deserve more here. I wonder if we're going to see her in another qualifier. I really hope so. There are 3 more spots in the ladder match, so still opportunity for something to happen and get put right. Backstage, Jackie has Gunther. She asks him how he's feeling about the situation in tomorrow's match. Stipulation, sorry. Gunther says Cody is a typical golden boy, and tonight he's going to beat some sense into him. He says he doesn't care about Sami. And at that, Johnny and Candice appears, and Candice tells Gunther not to do anything stupid because they need the win. We then randomly get Candice attacked by Blake Monroe, who tells her she's the new girl and she's going to see her around. And I think this is quite fun. I would love to see Candice get herself back into the ring and face Blake Monroe. I think that would be really cool. And the options that having a new pretty good talent such as Blake Monroe on the show, it does open up some really interesting new opportunities. So I'm quite interested to see what her match will be. As far as I know, unless I'm wrong, which is entirely possible, we haven't actually seen Blake in the ring on SmackDown yet, not officially anyway. I know she's done some attacks, so looking forward to seeing her properly wrestle. We've got Nia backstage. She's with Lash and Adam, and they're demanding consequences for what just happened. Lash tells Adam, I don't know how you run things on Raw, but here we expect there to be consequences. Adam says he saw what happened, and she will get another chance next week when she faces Charlotte to qualify. I guess if you think about it, there was little chance they were actually going to have Nia versus Jade in a one-on-one match. Too much chance of an absolute car crash with those two. I think we'll get a Nia win next week and see her in the ladder match. And speaking of Nia, she made an absolute pig's ear of the segment with Adam. She could barely get any words out. Good Lord, she's awful, but she is less awful than Jade. But it's close. Next out to the ring, we've got Fraxian versus the War Raiders, once the Viking Raiders, and they look pretty much the same. And this will be one hell of a style clash. We get a little bit of banter from Joe talking about Norway and Norwegian warriors, and Wade tells him to shut about the World Cup, and I couldn't agree more. This one kicks off, and the War Raiders using their considerable strength to flatten Joe Fraser. We do get a bit of a comeback from Fraxian briefly, but they're soon squashed by Ivor. He stacks them up and goes for the moonsault, but they both manage to scrabble out of the way, and he misses it, falling flat on his face. This one though ends up with the War Raiders delivering Ragnarok and taking the win. This was actually a pretty awesome match. The War Raiders are surprisingly entertaining. They certainly have massive amount of moves, and they continue to ask for the match with Priest and Truth. And could we see the War Raiders as double tag champs? Well, after tonight's performance, that wouldn't be a massive surprise, and to be honest, I wouldn't mind at all. I've never been entirely convinced by the team of Truth and Priest. We go to Cody backstage. Punk tells him that it's facing Gunther a good idea. Cody says, don't act like you don't understand why. Punk says that he has his back tonight. He doesn't want Cody hurt for the match tomorrow. Cody says no thanks. And he tells him you can watch on the monitor. But we all know that Punk is going to be at ringside, which probably means we also have Sami, and I predict this is going to break down pretty quick. So our main event tonight, Cody versus Gunther. Let's see how this plays out. Before that, though, we get a Danhausen bit. Jackie asks him about his match with JD McDonough tomorrow night. Danhausen says, who? And then he says, the one with the big forehead. She asks him why he turned down the help from Cadona. Danhausen says he has a secret weapon, and he shows her a stuffed cat in a budgie cage. He says, you never cross paths with a cat or you get cursed. So I'm not completely sure what's going to happen tomorrow night. But Danhausen, silly, yes, intriguing, always. So I guess let's see what happens there. Anyway, back to our main event tonight. Gunther out grinning like a Cheshire cat, and he's attacked on the ramp by a furious Cody as they brawl their way to the ring. They finally get in the ring, and we get the bell. And Cody is raging, and he's really taking it to Gunther. Gunther, though, manages to chuck Cody over the top rope in what looked like a pretty nasty landing for Cody. as he went up for the springboard, and then we get Gunther in charge of the match. He tries to take out Cody's knee repeatedly, and finally we get an intervention from Punk as Gunther was really getting the beat down on Cody. Cody mounts a fight back, escaping a GTS attempt from Gunther. Gunther gets him in a submission hold, continuing to damage Cody's knee ahead of tomorrow night's match. From the crowd, which looks like out of nowhere, we get out Sami, of course, and he attacks Punk from nowhere. And Sami seems quite mad and slightly unhinged, to say the least. Back in the ring, Cody does a suicide dive out of the ring, takes out Sami. Sami involves himself a bit too much and forces a DQ finish, and then it all really starts to break down as all four men take the sides they're going to have tomorrow night and continue to beat the hell out of each other. The ring is then obviously full of officials and producers as we go off air. It's absolute carnage. I'm sticking with what I've said. I don't want Gunther and Sami added to the SummerSlam card. I want to see a one-on-one with Cody versus Punk. But they have certainly made Saturday night's main event tomorrow night more interesting than perhaps it would have been by adding in this stipulation, which may entitle them to enter the SummerSlam match. So in terms of the show this week, as you can tell from the time it's taken me to record this show, it was actually pretty light. I guess the main news is the ladder match for the interim women's champ, and I really like that angle. I am slightly fearful of where that leads. I have a feeling it's going to be Jade that wins overall, and that takes us back to Rhea Jade at some point whenever Rhea's healthy. I really don't want that unless we get Rhea ripping her apart as revenge for the injury, which I guess would be very cool. The surprise of tonight's show is definitely the Ward Raiders versus Fraxium, which was such a great match. But those things aside, mostly a placeholder for Saturday night's main event and obviously building to SummerSlam. And we do have a new season of Unreal coming up this week, and I have really enjoyed the past two seasons of Unreal. And this one covers the lead up to the last Mania and includes the Cena farewell bit. So I am looking forward to watching that. Let's see what happens. Saturday night's main event, and from there how we go on to affect the SummerSlam outlook, which I believe is now only a couple of weeks away. So where is the summer going? Before you know it, it'll be autumn, the weather will be rubbish, and we'll be wishing that we are back in this heat wave again, which thankfully for anyone who's interested does seem to be dying down a little bit in the UK, and we seem to be a bit more back to business as usual. Well, that just about does it for this week's show. Slightly short and sweet, but thank you for having me in your ears once again, and remember, until next time, to be kind.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.